I paid their mortgage. I bought them groceries. I looked after their children. I never asked for gratitude, just a little respect. But when I heard my sister-in-law say what the best gift for her would be, something inside me broke. That day I stopped paying and started planning. But let me take you back to the beginning of the story. I was up before sunrise, same as always. Old habits die hard, especially when you've spent the better part of your life making school lunches, folding laundry, and making sure your family doesn't fall apart before breakfast. The house was quiet. I bent down to grab the florist box. On the kitchen table, I carefully arranged soft pink roses into the crystal vase my late husband, Walter, bought me for our 25th anniversary. It still sparkled when the morning light hit it just right. I only used it for special occasions, birthdays, Christmas brunch, and once when my bridge club got featured in the local paper. Today was one of those days, or so I thought. You see, I'd been planning a little surprise for Amanda, my daughter-in-law. She's always been a little distant with me, like a cat deciding whether it wants to be pet or claw your hand off. But I wanted to change that. I wanted to believe that maybe, just maybe, we could warm things up between us. So I'd picked out a delicate, hand-painted teacup set. I remembered her admiring it once in a boutique downtown while she pretended not to notice the sale sign. Now I don't splurge often. My pension isn't exactly stretching like it used to, but I thought, what the heck? Let her know I'm thinking of her. Let her know I care. I even wrote a card. Just a short note, nothing too mushy. To Amanda with love. Thank you for being a part of our family. I'm proud of the mother you're becoming. The plan was to bring the flowers, the gift, and a fresh batch of cinnamon pecan cookies to their house for brunch the next morning. We'd sit, chat, laugh a little. I'd offer to help clean up as I always do, and maybe, just maybe, she'd look at me like I belonged there. Then the phone rang. I wiped my hands on a dish towel and answered. Hello. Hey Mom, Jake said. My son. My only child. He sounded strained. Not angry. Not cheerful. Tight. I smiled instinctively. Hi, sweetheart. Just getting everything ready for tomorrow. I even found the vase. He was quiet for a moment. Then he cleared his throat. About tomorrow. Is something wrong? I asked, already bracing. He hesitated. Amanda thinks we should keep it small this year. Just the kids. Her parents are coming too. I blinked, gripping the edge of the countertop. I'm family. I know, Mom. It's just. She's feeling a little overwhelmed. The house is kind of a mess with the renovations, and we didn't want to make it too crowded. That house. The one I helped them buy. The one whose mortgage I'd been paying month after month, after Jake lost his job and Amanda's Etsy shop started running on fumes. I took a deep breath. Sure, honey. I understand. He let out a relieved sigh like I just defused a bomb. We hung up and I stood there in the middle of my kitchen. Dish towel in hand, flowers on the table, gift bag on the counter, and my heart sitting somewhere on the floor. But I didn't cry. I just looked at that vase and thought, special occasions don't mean a thing if no one bothers to show up. The next morning, I packed up the gift bag anyway. I'd already wrapped the teacup set in pale blue tissue paper and tied the handles with a satin ribbon. It seemed a shame to let it sit in the hall closet and gather dust. I tucked in the card, still unsigned but heartfelt. I figured I'd just swing by and leave it on their porch. No big fuss. I wasn't expecting a red carpet. I just wanted to do the right thing. I even threw in a few of my cinnamon pecan cookies. I've had neighbors fake birthdays just to get another batch. The gift bag looked sweet and thoughtful, the way I hoped Amanda might one day see me. Hope springs eternal, even in a woman pushing 70 with knees that snap like popcorn when she crouches. The air was still when I pulled into their driveway. I parked behind their SUV, careful not to block the mailbox. Lord forbid I inconvenience the postal worker. I just reached the bottom of the porch steps when I heard it. Her voice. Amanda's voice, clear as day, drifting from the open kitchen window. I paused. Not to eavesdrop, mind you, just instinct. I recognized her laugh first, that sharp little chuckle she saves for when she's saying something she knows she shouldn't. She's not invited this year, she said, her voice light. Honestly, the best gift would be if that old hag ended up in a nursing home. My feet turned to stone. My hand clenched around the handles of the bag, and for a second I couldn't move. I couldn't even breathe. My heart didn't race, it stalled. Just went dead quiet like it was listening too. Hag. That old hag. A nursing home. Like I was some dusty box she wanted to shove in the attic and forget. The bag slipped from my fingers. I watched it fall like in slow motion, before the bottom thudded against the concrete and the teacup set. My little peace offering, shattered inside with a dull crack. I bent down out of habit more than anything, and reached for the pieces poking through the gift wrap. One of them caught my finger. Thin little cut, barely deeper than a paper slice. I didn't feel a thing. All I could hear was that word, nursing home. My ears rang like someone had clanged a church bell inside my skull. My hands moved automatically, gathering the shards, but my mind was somewhere else. Somewhere back in the days when Amanda first joined our family, when I bought her a slow cooker for her bridal shower, thinking it might bring us closer. When I made her favorite stuffing for Thanksgiving even though sage gives me hives. When I offered to babysit so they could have date nights, not realizing they'd vanish for weekends. I stood up slowly, dusted off my palms, and looked at the broken bag like it was some kind of metaphor I hadn't asked for. I didn't knock. Didn't ring the bell. I just left the bag there, tucked the card back into my coat pocket, and walked to my car. I sat at my kitchen table for a long time after I got home, still wearing my coat. I hadn't even taken off my shoes, just tracked in a little bit of gravel from their driveway. The roses I'd arranged that morning sat wilted on the counter. Funny how quickly something can go from beautiful to pathetic. My eyes landed on the check. $2,500 already signed and dated, sitting right there like a polite little slap in the face. I'd written that check 3 days ago. Like clockwork. Every month I'd write one just like it, seal it up, and slide it into the mailbox like I was paying off a tab at a restaurant I never got to eat at. They never asked for the money, not with words. But they never had to. Jake would mention falling behind again. Amanda would sigh about the HVAC acting up, and I'd take the hint. That mortgage check? It was nearly half my monthly income. Fixed, of course. No raises in retirement unless you count my blood pressure. I lived frugally, I always had. I clipped coupons, used a flip phone until it literally fell apart, and drove a car old enough to qualify for its own ARP card. I stretched every dollar like it was a piece of saltwater taffy. And still, month after month, I paid their mortgage. Because I loved them. Because they were family. Because that's what mothers do. But that morning scene kept playing in my head. Amanda's voice, her laugh, that word. Hag. Nursing home. Like I was something expired that needed tossing out with the freezer-burned peas. I stood up, walked over to the table, picked up the check, and stared at it like it might apologize. It didn't. So I tore it in half. Then again. Neat even strips right down the middle. A quiet little rebellion. I walked over to the phone and dialed the number printed on the back of my checkbook. When the customer service rep answered, I cleared my throat and said, "I need to cancel a recurring payment." She was chipper. Young voice. "Of course, ma'am. May I ask which one?" I gave her the details. She hummed as she typed. "Oh, it looks like you've been making that payment for over a year now." "That's right. Are you sure you want to cancel? It'll stop the auto-withdrawal entirely." "I'm sure. Would you like to set a different amount or pause instead?" "No. I want it gone." There was a pause, then a polite click of the keyboard. "Okay. It's done. Is there anything else I can help you with today?" I thought for a moment. "No, sweetheart. That'll be all." When I hung up, I sat down at the table and took a deep breath. Not a dramatic movie scene kind of breath. Just a slow, long exhale, like I'd finally let go of a backpack I didn't know I'd been carrying. I made myself a cup of chamomile tea and drank it in the good china. The same set Amanda once said was too outdated for Instagram. Well, Instagram could shove it. That teacup had survived 3 moves, 2 toddlers, and 1 kitchen fire. It would survive this too. That night, I pulled out a clean sheet of paper and started making a new list. One that didn't include mortgage payments or teacup gifts. Just things for me. And for the first time in what felt like years, I didn't toss and turn. I just laid back and listened to the silence, and let it feel like peace instead of loneliness. 3 days went by. No calls, no texts, not even a guilt-laced emoji from Jake. First, I thought maybe he was giving me space. Then I figured Amanda had probably spun some story about me needing time to reflect. Please. I'd done more reflecting in one afternoon on their porch than I had in the past 5 years. Truth be told, the silence was nice, a kind of peace I hadn't felt in a long time. I reorganized my pantry, polished my good silver, even made a lemon meringue pie just because I felt like it. No occasion, no guests, just me and a slice of something sweet that didn't come with a side of resentment. Then the phone rang. I knew the number before I picked up. Jake. My heart did a little lurch, the way it always does when your kid calls out of the blue. Even when they're grown, even when they've let you down, that hope bubbles up like an old reflex. "Hey, Mom," he said, sounding about as casual as a cat on a hot stove. The mortgage didn't go through this month." I sat back in my chair and crossed one leg over the other. "No, it didn't." Long pause. "Was that on purpose?" "Yes." More silence. "Okay, why?" I took a slow sip of my coffee. "Because I'm not paying it anymore." He sounded like a boy caught cheating on a test. "But you can't just stop." "I can. And I have." I could almost hear the gears in his head turning, trying to come up with a counterargument. I gave him a moment, and sure enough, he went for the classic deflection. "Did Amanda say something? Is this about her?" I didn't flinch. "She said the best gift would be if I ended up in a nursing home." I heard it with my own ears. There was a beat of dead silence on the line. Then, "You were listening in on us?" "I was delivering gifts," I said, calm as iced tea on a July afternoon. "But thanks for confirming the tone." He started stammering. "Look, I'm sure she didn't mean it that way." "She did. She was probably joking." "She wasn't. Maybe it was just a bad moment." "Jake," I interrupted, soft but firm, "I have bent over backward for your family. I've paid your bills, stocked your fridge, watched your kids, and kept my mouth shut when I should have spoken up. And this is what I get." He was quiet again. "I'm done setting myself on fire to keep everyone else warm," I said. "If that makes me the villain in Amanda's story, so be it. I'll wear the black hat and live in peace." I don't know what to say. "For once, maybe just don't say anything. Just think." I could tell he wanted to argue, to salvage something, but the wind had gone out of his sails. I imagined him standing in the kitchen, phone pressed to his ear, eyes darting to Amanda, wondering if she'd heard everything. Maybe she had. Maybe she didn't care. We didn't hang up on bad terms exactly, but it wasn't good either. More like one of those awkward goodbyes at the end of a holiday dinner, when no one's quite ready to admit the mashed potatoes got cold and the cranberry sauce tasted like regret. When I set the phone down, I felt lighter. Not happy, but clear. A few days later, I heard a knock at the door. Not the friendly, polite kind either. This one had urgency, like someone trying to talk their way out of a bad decision. I peeked through the lace curtain and saw Jake and Amanda standing on my porch. He looked like he hadn't slept in days, shirt wrinkled, hair a mess, the poor thing clutching a manila folder like it might save his soul. Amanda, on the other hand, stood like she was ready to file a customer complaint. Arms crossed, jaw tight, sunglasses on even though it was cloudy. I opened the door halfway. "Mom," Jake started, voice low. "Can we talk?" I stepped aside without a word and let them in. I didn't offer coffee. They sat at the table where I'd once taught Jake how to count change and helped him build a baking soda volcano. Now the tension in the room could curdle milk. Amanda jumped in first. "Let's just move past this." I raised an eyebrow. "This? The payment," she said, waving her hand like it was a misplaced utility bill. "We need it." I blinked at her, then let out a soft laugh. Not a warm one, mind you. The kind of laugh that says, "Oh honey, I see you for what you are." "We," I said. Funny, because I don't recall being part of we when brunch plans were made. Or unmade. Amanda's smile dropped like a bad souffle. "Oh, come on. This is childish. You're making it personal." "I'm not making it personal," I said. "You already did that." She rolled her eyes, then turned to Jake like she was daring him to step in. He didn't. So she leaned forward. "You think Jake would even come around if you weren't paying our bills?" Jake winced. I watched it happen, shoulders pulled in, eyes darted to the floor. "You've been buying your way into our lives," Amanda continued. "Because let's be honest, what else do you have to offer? A guilt trip and some expired cookies?" That one stung. "And now," she said, her voice getting sharper, You're having a tantrum because you finally realize we've been using you. Jake shifted in his chair, probably wanting to disappear into the floor. I looked at him and saw the boy I raised, but I also saw the man he'd let himself become, and I couldn't decide which was sadder. I stood up and walked over to the door, opened it wide. Time to go. Amanda scoffed. Seriously? Jake looked at me. Mom. I've heard enough. They didn't argue, just stood and shuffled out, Amanda muttering something under her breath that I chose not to catch. I closed the door behind them and stood there for a moment, hands still on the knob. The house was quiet again. My chest felt tight, but not from sorrow. No, this was something else. This was the weight of years rolling off my shoulders all at once. I didn't cry. I didn't shout. I just put the kettle on and made myself a cup of tea. The good kind. The days after that door slam were quieter than usual. No phone calls, no texts, no little voices on the other end asking if Grandma had any more cookies left. I kept busy, the way women of my generation do when things start to ache in places that aren't physical. It was hot out. One of those sticky afternoons where the sun makes everything feel heavy and slow. I just settled into my armchair with a crossword puzzle and a glass of iced tea when the doorbell rang. Now let me tell you something. Nobody rings my bell unannounced unless it's a solicitor, a package, or a miracle. I opened the door and just about lost my breath. There, standing on my porch with a helmet askew and cheeks flushed pink, was Lily. My granddaughter. 11 years old, gap-toothed smile, and pigtails askew like she'd raced the wind to get there. Lily, I said, stunned. What on earth? Did your daddy drive you over? She shook her head, trying to catch her breath. I biked. That's when I saw her little purple bicycle tipped over by the mailbox. Mom says you don't want to see us anymore, she said, her voice cracking just enough to break my heart in half. But I knew that wasn't true. Oh, honey. I pulled her in and hugged her tight, helmet and all. She smelled like sunscreen and bubblegum in childhood. I didn't cry, no, I held it together for her, but my throat sure did ache. Well, I said, brushing her hair back from her face. You found me. You hungry? She nodded. So I did the only thing that made sense. I made her hot chocolate. Yes, I know it was 80 degrees outside, but she wanted it. Said mine was the best. I even added those tiny marshmallows that get melty and gooey, just the way she liked. She sat at my kitchen table, swinging her legs and telling me about school and her science project, and how Amanda had a new wellness routine that mostly involved complaining. I laughed. Genuinely laughed. And for the first time in a long time, the house felt like home again. Later I called Jake. She's here, I said. She biked over on her own. He sighed, long and tired. Amanda's furious. Well, I said, Amanda doesn't need to know. Silence. Then, can she stay for dinner? She already has a plate in front of her. He came to pick her up around 7. When I opened the door, I barely recognized him. Jake looked like he'd aged 10 years in a week. Shadows under his eyes, shoulders slumped like the weight of the world was sitting on his back. Thanks for watching her, he said. I nodded and looked him over. You all right? He gave a half smile that didn't touch his eyes. I lost my job again. The contract didn't get renewed. And the bank's calling. Amanda's folks can't help? They've got their own mess, he said. We're on our own. I just nodded and poured him a glass of water. We sat in silence for a while, watching Lily chase a firefly in the yard. A few days after our quiet dinner and the firefly chase, Jake came by again. No call ahead, just knocked softly on the door like he was a teenager who dented the car. I opened it, and there he stood with a thick envelope in his hand. His shirt was wrinkled again, but this time it looked more like life had crumpled it, not just the dryer. Got something for you, he said, holding out the envelope. I let him in. He set it down on my table like it was radioactive. Inside were all the cards I'd sent over the past year, birthday cards, holiday notes, even a little Valentine I'd tucked $10 into for Lily because she told me she was too grown up for cartoon hearts but not too grown up for chocolate. None of them had been opened. Jake sat down and ran his hand through his hair. She kept them from the kids, he said. Told me she didn't want them to get attached. I didn't say anything right away. I just gathered the cards back into the envelope and slid them aside. Then he said it. We're about to lose the house. It was quiet for a long time after that. Finally, I leaned back in my chair. "What are you asking?" Jake looked up. "Would you help us?" "Just until I find something steady." I didn't answer right away. I reached under the table and pulled out a folder from my knitting basket. I'd been expecting this. You don't raise a boy without learning to read the signs. Especially when that boy turns into a man who keeps waiting for his wife to speak for him. "I talked to a lawyer," I said, laying the folder on the table between us. "Went through the bank records, all the checks I wrote. I've put in over $150,000 into that house. That's not charity. That's equity." Jake blinked. "You're suing us?" "No," I said. "But if I help again, it won't be out of guilt. It'll be as a co-owner." He shifted in his seat. "What does that mean?" "It means if I'm paying for it, I get a say in it. I want regular time with the kids. No more excuses, no more secret mail piles. I want to be invited to birthdays, school plays, whatever they're doing that matters." He nodded slow. "Okay. And Amanda?" He froze. "She apologizes. For real. Not a text. Not a note. I want to hear it. From her." He rubbed the back of his neck. "She's not going to do that. Then we're done." His mouth opened but nothing came out. "I love you, Jake," I said. "But I won't be treated like an old ATM with good banana bread. I gave you everything I had without asking for a thing in return. And you let her lock me out of my own family." Jake swallowed hard. "I didn't know. You didn't want to." We sat in silence again. Then I stood up and opened the door. "Think about it," I said. "But I'm not bending anymore." He picked up the envelope of unopened cards, tucked it under his arm, and left without another word. I closed the door, locked it, and made myself a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. No fine china this time, just a paper napkin and the satisfaction of knowing I'd finally stopped giving away pieces of myself without asking what I got in return. Jake moved out not long after our last talk. I don't know where he went at first, maybe a friend's couch or one of those extended stay places with mismatched curtains and sad little toasters. But he packed a duffel bag, took a few boxes, and left Amanda standing in the driveway with her arms crossed and a look like she'd lost her last chess piece. Amanda didn't call me. Not that I expected her to. A month later, she left town with the kids in tow, heading for her sister's place 3 states over. I heard through the grapevine that she needed a break, though it sounded more like she needed a fresh audience. Apparently, her sister had a finished basement and a fridge full of sparkling water. Jake came back around slowly. He looked worn thin, like a man trying to hold up a porch roof with one shaky arm. But he started doing the hard things. Filed for custody. Showed up to court in a decent tie and with every document alphabetized. I didn't ask how he afforded the lawyer. I figured he finally realized some battles are worth the bruises. 6 months later, the kids were back. It was awkward at first. Lily hugged me like nothing had ever changed, but her little brother, Max, clung to Jake like a shadow. Jake got a steady job at a small logistics company in town. Nothing flashy but honest work. The kind that made him come home tired in a good way. He'd swing by on Saturdays, mow my lawn, fix the porch screen. As for me, well, I did something I hadn't done in decades. I picked up a paintbrush. It started simple. An old watercolor set I'd tucked away in a drawer marked someday. I painted flowers at first, then little landscapes, then my backyard when the dogwood bloomed just right. I signed up for an art class at the community center. Every Tuesday night, I sat in a room with a dozen women, most of whom had names ending in AE, and strong opinions about acrylics. One of my paintings, a sun-drenched garden with a crooked picket fence, ended up in a local gallery's spring exhibit. I stood there on opening night, eating cube cheese with a toothpick and pretending not to cry when someone said it reminded them of their grandmother's yard. Then last month a card came in the mail. No return address, just my name in delicate cursive. It was from Amanda. A half-hearted apology. Something about misunderstandings and not realizing the impact of her words. No mention of the broken tea set. No real regret. I read it once, folded it neatly, and set it on top of the kindling in my fireplace. Watched the flame curl around the corners and turn it to ash. Some bridges are better burned to the ground. Makes room for better views. Would I do it all over again? You bet your cinnamon buns I would.
Share your thoughts in the comments. What do you think Amanda expected would happen when she said those things out loud? If you liked the story, subscribe to the channel and give us a like.